Yes, thank
Perfect.
you.
Okay, so firstly, let me introduce myself. So I'm Daniel. I am the captain down at Westleigh Rural Fire Brigade. Tonight, I'm just giving a bit of a quick overview of some things that we can do as a community to prepare ourselves for an upcoming fire season, should we have one. At this stage, it's a little bit of unknown whether we're going to have a significant fire season or not. My advice is whether it looks like we've got rainfall on the way or whether it looks like it's going to be a dry summer, prepare for the worst. That way we are set if anything was to kick off, and we are in a much better position as a community. So the outlook for spring certainly is that it's going to be a wetter spring. This is kind of dictated by two different ocean events. So one over on the far western side of Australia, and then one in the Pacific Ocean as well. I won't go into any details about those, but basically the conditions that we're seeing at the moment are leading us to think that we will have at least a wetter than average spring. But what happens come summer, we're not entirely sure. Which is why I always say prepare for the worst. There's no harm in doing that. So who are we? So Westleigh Fire Brigade, we are made up of about 60 firefighters. We are all volunteers and we're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. Even though we are a rural fire service, we don't just look after bushfires. So we have a huge part, obviously, in community presence and making sure that the community are aware of what's happening, and providing them information that they can put together to actually organise themselves for a fire season. But we also look after a range of other incidents. So we have an area on the freeway which we look after for motor vehicle accidents. We'll also respond to house fires in the local area, and also storm damage and any other sort of emergency that might pop up along the way. So the area that we cover is obviously Westleigh, Thornley, Normanhurst, Penny Hills, Beecroft, Cheltenham, and then North Epping as well. So here is an overview of the area. So all of these red areas are basically any bush that is a bushfire risk, which obviously Westleigh sits roughly in the middle of that map there. And you can see everything to the north and particularly over to the northwest. That's our biggest concern for bushfires. For the suburb itself, basically the entire suburb is prone to receiving some ember attack. So what that is embers that get thrown in front of the actual fire front, which may end up in your gutters or on outdoor furniture and things like that. So that's actually the biggest risk for us. 90% of houses that get lost in bushfires aren't actually from the fire front itself. It's from these embers getting thrown sometimes kilometres ahead of the fire front, and starting a spot fire. So it is really critical that we do prepare ourselves before this fire comes through so that these embers don't actually take off. So I've just got a quick video. I'm hoping the audio works as well. This is just a bit of an ad for, I guess, just to get you thinking about what could happen if a fire was to kick off. Let me know if you hear the audio. It'll start up in a sec. It's not actually loud yet.
I can hear the audio.
Perfect, thank you.
We planned to stay. We never thought it could reach us here.
Look, we can't see them.
It wasn't to leave the horses. your plan?
Okay, so that's just a very short ad for the Rural Fire Service, basically showing that you really need to put a bit of thought into a bushfire plan before the season actually hits us, because there's going to be a lot of considerations that you need to think about in advance in that particular scenario, such as what are we going to do with the horses? Sure, we don't have horses here, but that might be the pets that we have. There was a tree that had fallen down over the road. How are we actually getting out of the suburb? For anyone north of our fire station on Warrigal Drive there, just off Quarter Sessions Road, that's actually a bit of a pinch point, and it's one road that gets a majority of the suburb out of the suburb if it actually was to be on fire. If you were to leave it to the last minute, then obviously we're going to have traffic implications, but also there could be fire on both sides of the road there as well. So something to just think about whilst you are putting your plan in place. So the next few slides that I go through is all just discussing the bushfire survival plan. So you can download a version of this from the Rural Fire Service website, and it will go through point by point different things that you should consider leading up to the season. Best to go through with your family before the season goes through, but write something down, make it a plan, and revisit it as well. So step one is to discuss. So what will you do in a bushfire? Plan now. So here are a few questions that we should be asking ourselves, but essentially, what should we do? Either leave early, it's your safest option, or decide to stay, only stay if you are prepared. So if you are leaving early, where will you go? When will you leave, sorry? Where will you go? How will you get there? What will you take? And what is your backup plan? So you need to know when you're at, what your particular trigger point is. If you have a member of the family who has mobility issues, this is something obviously that you'd need to take into consideration as well. And you'd probably be leaving earlier than someone who, can sit around a little bit longer because they are fit, they're, healthy and all the rest, and they leave it to a slightly later stage. But obviously there could be those traffic implications that I discussed earlier as well. So if you decide to stay, so only stay if your home is well prepared. So this is that you've done all of the hard work before the fire actually comes through. There is no point coming and trying to clean out all of your gutters that you haven't touched in 12 months when a fire has started in that bushland to the northwest of Westleigh. Are you putting yourself at risk? Will you cope in an emergency situation? This is a really big one because obviously it's going to be quite a stressful period of time. And you need to make sure that you're both physically and mentally able to cope with that situation. Do you have the equipment that you need? When will you start defending your home? How will you defend your home? Is everyone in the home trained in what to do? And what is your backup plan? Step two, prepare your home and get ready. So this is where you actually put all of those considerations into action, and you actually go out there and you do the jobs. So what are we doing? We are trimming trees that are overhanging the house. Anything that might be dropping leaves into our gutters, just clear it up, make it all safer. We're mowing the grass. Grass is something that will quite easily catch on fire with those embers. So we need to make sure that that's nice and short and well kept. We are removing any material that might burn. So outdoor furniture, doormats, mulch piles, even things like piles of wood, which you would be burning throughout winter. All of these should be moved away from the house because they do have a slightly higher risk of catching fire from those embers. Clear and remove the detritus and the leaves from the gutters. Pretty self-explanatory, but that's obviously quite a main area where these fires will start with those ember attacks. And prepare a sturdy hose or hoses that will reach all the way around your house. So 5 different things that you should be doing to prepare, regardless of whether you want to stay and defend or leave early. A well-prepared house is something that we can actually save as well. So step 3, know the bushfire alert levels. I'm sure many of you would have seen these alert levels in our fire season 2 years ago. They have slightly changed. There used to be a blue, a yellow and a red diamond, but now it's yellow, orange and red, which just matches up with the national standard, which all of the services are now doing. So advice: a fire has started. There's no immediate threat, but you should stay up to date. The orange one, watch and act. There is a heightened level of threat. Conditions are changing and you need to start taking action to protect yourself and your family. And then emergency warning. So this is the highest level of alert and you may be in danger. You need to take action immediately. These are the different fire danger ratings. And this is something that might be something that you consider a trigger point for when you actually leave your house. So if you're in a catastrophic fire danger rating day and we are surrounded by the bush here, you might choose to say, you know what, I'm not going to take the risk and I'm going to go to an area that's not as high of a risk rather than staying in Westleigh. This might be for a number of factors, but could be because you have mobility issues, so you don't want to leave it until a fire starts to actually get out. Conversely, you might say, okay, if it's a severe fire danger rating day and a fire kicks off in that bushland around Westleigh, that's going to be my trigger point to leave. We'll get out nice and early. This is going to be something that individuals need to decide and decide with your families. Catastrophic is the worst that it gets. I think we've had a couple of these days 2 years ago, but basically no house is able to be defended under these conditions. So your safest option is to leave early.
Bushfire
Just another quick video.
A bushfire can travel at over 25 k's an hour. Even if you think it's a long way away, a fire could be on your doorstep before you know it. Here's how you can keep track of bushfires in your area so you can make informed decisions about staying safe. Firstly, don't rely on someone telling you about a fire. Visit the Fires Near Me page on the RFS website or download the Fires Near Me app to see if there are any fires nearby. Secondly, follow the Rural Fire Service on Twitter or Facebook for updates and share it with family and friends. Thirdly, if there is a fire, stay up to date by listening to local radio for updates. And if you get a phone call or text message warning, take it seriously and take action. Getting ready for a bushfire is easier than you think. For more helpful tips, visit myfireplan.com.au today.
Excellent. So that video just pointed out a couple of different avenues that you can find out about bushfires. Obviously, if you do see a fire and there isn't a fire truck in attendance, then we need to call 000. But if you're after any information for bushfire that might have kicked off or even a hazard reduction in the local area, there is that 1-800-NSW RFS phone number that you can call. That's manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Not by us. That's a head office in Sydney Olympic Park, but they're able to give you any answers that you might need. Obviously, there's the Rural Fire Service website. Then there's the Fires Near Me app. If anyone doesn't have the Fires Near Me app, I would encourage you to download this. You can actually set up a what they call a watch zone. So if a fire was to kick up in a particular area and you sort of define that area based on how many kilometers away from an area that you want. So for example, I use a 5 kilometer radius from home. Anything that pops up within that window, I probably already know about, but it will send a notification to my phone and it'll tell me that a fire has kicked off in that particular area. In emergency situations, the local radio channels, particularly ABC Emergency, they're going to be the ones to listen to, but also the New South Wales Rural Fire Service Facebook and Twitter page. It is quite important. Don't necessarily watch our particular Westleigh Rural Fire Brigade Facebook page in these events. They are actually monitored and updated by the volunteers themselves. And if we're out at fires, there's a good chance that we won't be updating any information on there. So by all means, follow us and you'll learn about upcoming hazard reductions and things that you can do to prepare your property. But we won't necessarily be uploading time critical information because we're out on a fire truck rather than uploading that information. So that is the end of my presentation. So the other thing that I very quickly wanted to just mention as well is that we do have a couple of hazard reductions that are planned in the local area, not in Westleigh itself, but there's one over in Thornley, just down the rural avenue there. And then there's another one over near or the back of Pennant Hills Park. We're hoping that this wet weather goes away and we can pick those up relatively soon. But there are a number of hazard reductions throughout the districts that we are trying to get done. If you do keep an eye out on our Facebook page, we'll be able to give you a little bit of notice before those burns are actually put into place. So usually a couple of days beforehand, we know that yes, we're going to do it, or no, we won't. And if we are going to do it, anything in our local area, we'll update onto our Facebook page. That's it from me. Do I have any questions at all? Or
Yeah. Dan, I was wondering, quite often when there's a fire being fought somewhere near here, we always want to know what we can do to help, bringing slabs of cold drinks and bringing food for you guys. Is that needed, and what can we actually do to help you?
Not really. There's not a lot that residents themselves can do for the firefighters themselves. We do have plenty of drinking water and supplies as well that we take out on the trucks. We do appreciate the sentiment there. But I guess from our point of view, what we really want to see is people enacting their bushfire plans and actually going out at this time of the year, making sure that they're mowing the lawns and cleaning the gutters. That's going to make our job far easier. So that's what we really ask from the community members. You know, anything that you can do to help us out. Cleaning the gutters is going to be the first one, tidying up all of those overhanging branches and you know, that pile of twigs and branches that have been accumulating over winter. That's going to help us out immensely.
Right, thank you.
I will, before I duck off as well, I'll put a email address into the chat, and that way if anyone comes up with any questions, feel free to send us an email or contact us through our Facebook page and we will get back to you.